Death might be an eternal truth, but it is also the hardest to deal with. In spite of all human developments over the ages, we are yet to comprehend a few mysteries around death, and this has been a steady fodder for the horror genre to weave the webs of imagination and fear around it. In the 6th episode of Cabinet of Curiosities, Guillermo del Toro leads us into strictly Lovecraftian territory, and we are introduced to one of H.P. Lovecraft's finest stories, Dreams in the Witchhouse, a story that explores the afterlife and the horrors associated with life after death. In this video, we will break down the episode for you and explore the demonic entity in the story. Beware of a few spoilers along the way as we bring you a slice of some nightmarish Lovecraftian horror. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a whole lot. So thank you, and let's begin.
I'm scared. Well, look at me. I promised you I'd protect you.
What happens when a man cannot get over the death of a loved one? Exploring the plot. An ominous prologue from Guillermo del Toro sets up the episode perfectly, and the horror veteran spares a few words to honor the legacy of Lovecraft and his work. The first scene takes you to a bedridden girl named Epperly, who is clearly very sick. The little girl only seems to have her twin brother Walter to care for her, and the young boy has nothing much to offer except his comforting words. He promises to always protect his sister, who is extremely disturbed by the idea that time might be running out for her. It all wraps up pretty quickly because the girl dies in the arms of her helpless brother, who fails to keep his promise. After her death, he watches an apparition of Epperly. Walter watches in horror as some other supernatural forces drags his sister's spirit into the nearby woods, and she disappears. The younger boy is too powerless to deal with such a situation, but it leaves a deep impact on his mind. The story moves ahead several years, and we are now in the year 1933. Walter has grown up to be a young man who is still obsessed with the possibility of bringing his sister back from the realm of the dead. He is very curious about all forms of supernatural phenomena around him, but most of them turn out to be a hoax. He is also a part of a spiritualist society along with his closest friend Frank, but the latter is having second thoughts about spending all their time in pursuit of learning more about life after death. The scene that introduces adult Walter, played by Rupert Grint, shows him sitting through an attempt to interact with the dead spirit. However, he soon discovers that it is yet another hoax, simply designed to fool the audience with basic elements of magic. Walter is disappointed, but such drawbacks do not dent his determination to reach out to his dead sister by any means possible. Meanwhile, the spiritualist society is not making any real breakthroughs well, and there is a severe shortage of funding. Walter has to make do with his second job as a bartender, and Frank hardly even believes in their cause anymore, accusing Walter of being too obsessed with a death that happened all those years ago. When Walter requests the Spiritual Society for more funds to look into some new mediums, the organization refuses, citing the lack of funds. However, during this visit, Walter crosses paths with a painter named Mariana. From whatever little the episode shows us at this point, all we get to know is that Mariana is being tormented by some creepy and disturbing visions. A nun is summoned to check on her situation, and the nun leaves after being disgusted by some of the paintings made by Mariana. It appears as though Mariana put her troublesome visions into her works, and the nun considers it to be absolutely ungodly and refuses to help. Walter is disappointed with the lack of cooperation from the Spiritualist Society, but there is a change in his fortunes one night as he works as the bartender. He overhears two men discussing something about dimension traveling, and his curiosity leads him to seek them out for more. After Walter tells them about his personal experiences, they reveal a little something about a realm called the Forest of Lost Souls. Apparently, the men know the means to visit this realm, and Walter is game for just about anything to get another glimpse of his sister. He heads back to their basement, where they offer him some kind of a drug called liquid gold. The men claim that this drug will take him into the Forest of Lost Souls, and indeed, Walter finds himself waking up in this strange land. The only instruction that the men have for Walter is to not cause any ripples in the forest, whatever that means. Walter finds his way through the creepy landscape where multiple spirits can be observed roaming around, and eventually he finds Epperly. She is exactly in the condition as she was all those years ago, and she hasn't aged one bit. Just as he is about to interact with his sister, one of the magical branches of the forest pulls him out of the realm. He wakes up in the basement, but now Walter has a fresh dose of enthusiasm to pursue his goals of reuniting with his sister. Unfortunately, the liquid gold doesn't come cheap, and Frank is not too thrilled to learn about the whole experience. He is also not too keen to spend more of their hard-earned money because he just believes that Walter saw things under the influence of some drug. They have an ugly argument where Frank reveals that his belief is the supernatural stuff was not strong enough because he never experienced something himself. However, Walter still uses some of his last resources to buy another dose of the liquid gold, and this time around, his journey into the Forest of Lost Souls is more successful. He gets to interact with his sister, who is also thrilled to see him after all of these years. She tells him that she got trapped in this realm because she was too scared to accept her death back then, and now there is no way out of there. During their interactions, it is revealed that Walter never really recovered from the death of his twin sister and gave up on all of his ambitions to find a way to reach her again. During the visit to the Forest of Lost Souls, Walter is also shocked to see Mariana painting in the forest, but further discussions with his sister are cut short by the magical branch once again. This time around, as Walter is pulled back into the real world, he finds a small piece of his sister's nightgown in his hands. This makes him thrilled because he believes that there is a chance for him to bring back things from the other side. The desperation to continue his visits to the Forest of Lost Souls, and of course his deteriorating financial conditions, drive Walter to stay in the house where Mariana lives. The painter started having her visions after moving to this house, which is almost in ruins, and Walter takes up a room in this house. He seems to think that there is something about the house that allows people to cross over into the mysterious realm because he had previously seen Mariana there during his last visit. The room that is allotted to him is on the verge of falling apart. Roots and vines have grown through the walls, and everything is eerily damp and dark. He even spots a strange rat in the burrow in the walls of the house, and it seems to have a creepy human face. More secrets are soon revealed about the house, and this is where you need to know more about the previous owner of the house, Keziah Mason. She was a witch who performed strange rituals in the house, and she had a fascination with traveling through the dimension of the living and the dead. The house itself was constructed over a ley line, and this is the very spot where Keziah did some unspeakable things back in the day. During the era of rampant witch hunts in the US, Keziah was prosecuted for her ungodly activities, and she was tortured and hung to death. However, her body could not be found again, and it remains a mystery even to this day. Back in the present, Walter is bewildered by the negative aura of the house. However, he is also curious about some of the drawings and inscriptions on the wall. These seem to indicate that a key could be used to bring the dead back from the Forest of the Lost Souls into the land of the living. While these offer a possibility for Walter to keep his childhood promise and protect his sister, he has to fight some dark forces that start to haunt him. It becomes clear that the evil spirit of Keziah still lurks around the house, and she traumatizes Walter in his dreams. These violent and disturbing dreams also feature encounter the strange talking rat with a human face. In these dreams, Keziah conveys to Walter that the ritual to bring back someone from the Forest of Lost Souls requires twins who have a stronger bond than death itself. Clearly, the demonic witch has marked Walter to be her medium, but her exact motives are not clear. But the talking rat does reveal that Walter is the key to the end of their torment in his confines of the house.
Is this the one we've been waiting for, Keziah? Has he come to free us both?
Which probably indicate that the demonic form of Keziah seeks to escape using Walter's mortal body. By now, Walter is convinced that he could bring his dead sister back from the Forest of Lost Souls, and the next vial of liquid gold that he tries is in the room of Keziah's house. He crosses over and finds Epperly, but he soon finds out that an unwelcome guest has followed him there. Just as he tries to convince his sister to come along with him, Keziah reveals herself. It appears that the demonic witch simply wants to use the powers of Walter to resurrect herself and her evil minion. The talking rat helps her track the two. At one point during the chase through the forest, Keziah catches up with Walter, and she tries to take over his life force through a deadly kiss, but Epperly helps break him free. The two manage to escape into the world of the living and find themselves back in the house. Walter immediately seeks help from Mariana, the painter who he saw in the other realm as well. She is shocked to see Epperly because she recognizes her from her own paintings. She also realizes that her paintings are simply a hint for the future, and she lets us in on a cruel secret. If Epperly is to become a part of the living world in flesh and blood, Walter would have to die. However, his death would also help Keziah and her evil minion revive themselves. As a truly loving brother, Walter is willing to sacrifice himself, but Epperly doesn't want this bargain, and she runs away from the room. In desperate need of help, Walter and Mariana head to the local church, where we see the same old nun who previously shunned Mariana for her paintings. She is reluctant to help them because they both broke some holy laws by crossing over the land of the dead. However, Mariana pleads with her and convinces her to provide them shelter in the holy ground of the church. Walter also calls his friend Frank, who is shocked to find them in this situation. All his life, he complained about never experiencing the paranormal, and today, his wishes are about to come true in the worst way possible. Keziah is too powerful to be stopped, and we soon find out that even the church is not a deterrent for her. The demonic witch never steps inside, but she causes the glass windows to shatter. The shreds of glass fatally stab the nun, and Walter is drawn outside by some unseen force. Despite the best efforts of Mariana and Frank, Walter is taken outside. He is teleported back to Keziah's mansion, and she is finally about to complete the ritual by stabbing him to death with the key to the other world. However, the witch forgot to account for his sister, who jumps in at the right moment and stabs Keziah with the key. Now, it appears as though she has finally been defeated and Walter is saved, but meanwhile, Epperly explains to Walter how she is now prepared to embrace death, and she would finally be free and not stuck in the Forest of Lost Souls. After an emotional farewell, Walter collapses on the floor, and he is later found by Frank and Mariana.
And there it is! A happy ending if there ever was one.
Is it a happy ending? Well, the episode did open with a promise that we would get a happy ending, but if you are familiar with Lovecraftian tales, you know all too well that there always seems to be a twist lurking around the corner. Frank and Mariana put Walter to bed, and he seems to be burning with a fever. Frank decides to take a closer look inside the attic on the ceiling, and further investigation reveals decomposed remains of Keziah and her minion up there. Their shocking discovery is interrupted when they hear Walter screaming in pain, and they rush into the room to find him in a near-death state. Something seems to be eating up his insides and causing ripples in his body, and soon, in a truly alien style, the talking rat emerges, bursting through Walter's chest cavity. It turns out that the rat was trying all along to make sure that the prophecies are true, and Walter dies before sunrise. And the moment he collapses on the floor, it enters his body. Frank and Mariana are dejected by the fate of their friend and leave in shock at what they had just witnessed. However, one more surprise awaits us all. As we get to see the final phases of Walter's mortal remains, the rat jumps back in, and it seems like it can manipulate the body from inside. We get to know that the happy ending that was promised at the beginning was actually for the rat, who would now continue to use the body of Walter until it lasts.
Smells like poverty, this one.
All about the demonic Keziah and the man-faced talking rat. Adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's works is always tricky business, and Catherine Hardwicke does a fine job of manipulating the original story of dreams in the Witchhouse to her requirement. Those who are aware of the original story will know that the premise has been changed considerably. The whole twin sister connection and the Forest of Lost Souls are conjured for the on-screen adaptation, and the original narrative heads in a different direction altogether. However, the episode does put together a near-perfect portrayal of Keziah Mason. The creature and monster designs have been a feature in almost all the episodes of the series, and this one is not an exception. Keziah looks absolutely terrifying as the undead demonic witch with glowing eyes. She is part human and part foliage, with her body rotting away, signifying decay. Her glowing eyes are pure evil, and one of her scariest features has to be the demonic voice and screams. She is also extremely powerful, as it is evident from her manipulation of Walter, or teleporting them back to the house when she required. Even the holy ground of the church could not deter her or weaken her powers, and she was able to force Walter outside even though she could not come inside herself. She wanted his soul to revive herself in the world of the living, and the jaw-dropping visual effects make her look every bit as threatening as she was intended to be. The rat with a human face is suitably creepy, and he seems to be the ultimate mastermind as he takes over Walter's body in the end. This talking rat named Jenkins Brown is borrowed from the original story, but he has a very different fate in the episode. He appears to be a regular-sized rat with a strangely human face, and his words are always glistening with sarcasm. He seems to be the mastermind if you look back at all that has happened. He was not too bothered about Keziah being destroyed by Walter's sister, and he always harbored plans of using his body as a vessel. There could be a possibility that he was actually manipulating Keziah the whole time, and his end goal was always to free himself and to not involve the witch at all. Marvelous verdict, a fine specimen of Lovecraftian horror. The episode shines because of some impeccable special effects, but the performance of Rupert Grint cannot be discounted. He fits perfectly into the role, and his acting skills take the storytelling to the next level. The narrative tugs at our emotions at times, and also manages to infuse a few genuine jump scares. We also have to spare a word for the incredible sound effects that are super creepy at times, keeping up with the whole Lovecraftian ambiance. The storytelling gets a bit slow at times, but aside from that, the director hardly puts a foot wrong in this Guillermo del Toro presentation. Dreams in the Witchhouse might not be the best episode of the series, but it certainly ranks right up there amongst the finest. Let us know in the comments below about your thoughts on the episode, and also tell us what you think finally happened to Keziah and the talking rat. We thought this was a decent Lovecraftian adaptation, but did you? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. And in the meantime, have a good one and be safe, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.